Well, week by week, we keep making progress on the sheep wagon. I feel like we're getting closer. You know, I've done a number of remodels in home remodels. Seems like every place we've lived in, we've had to remodel. And some of the longest projects seem to be those finishing touches, you know, before you move in. In fact, we always joke about you never finish putting the last piece of trim on until the for sale sign goes up in the yard. Well, hopefully we're not that bad here. But, you know, I've always been a fan of Western lifestyle. I'm a fan of Louis L'Amour. And I've heard it said, I haven't experienced this, but after days on the trail without water, there's times when those cows will smell water if it's even anywhere close, and you just can't hold them back. They're going for the water. That's kind of how the owner is on this sheep wagon. He showed up ready to move in. He brought a coffee pot to put on the stove. We've got an old calendar here, Winchester from 1896. Even has his coffee cup. This must be some kind of a hot pad. It's some kind of a wall hanging deal. I don't quite understand all this stuff. This might be a tablecloth or something? I don't know. We got some blankets here. Must be ready to go on to the bed. And another heavier blanket here is kind of interesting. It's got some deer on it. I don't quite savvy what all this is. You know, obviously there's not going to be anybody that ever lives in this again, but he's gearing up to when this goes to the museum. He wants to have some trinkets and some finishing touches inside that might resemble maybe how the Basque shepherd lived. I don't know. I do have a few things that I need to tidy up on. I left the box unfinished and a few other odds and ends. We're getting closer, but we're not quite ready to move in yet. Well, on the tail end of this wagon, there were a couple irons that go back here. One goes here, and there's another iron that goes on the lower edge here, and it's a bit of a puzzle as to why it's placed as it is. This is the back end of the left side, and this one with the hook fastens right here. That lines up with an iron inside, so that one's pretty clear. And then this one I have marked for the left side, and it went right here. And this is kind of the puzzle as to why is it in this position. Now these cleats come right down to the floorboard, and this iron is positioned about so to where this hole goes just above the floorboard through the bottom of this rear cleat. I'm not sure if there was a rod across here. I just don't really understand that. The best I can do is put it right back in the same place where it was. I mean, it's obvious that's where it was. As to its purpose, not totally clear. My first impression when I was taking this apart, I would have thought the second hole would have gone through this area here right above the floorboard, and this would have extended down below the floor for a rod to go across. But that's not what the old board shows. It shows that it goes just right about in here. So I guess for being original, I'll stick it right back there. Well, there's another set of irons that go on the side of these boxes that pertain to the brake system on these style of wagons. This has a friction brake, if you remember. It's a real common style of brake on these style of wagons, hanging off of a brake beam. And this brake beam goes in and out, controlled by a lever on the right side. Well, this brake beam is suspended off of this brake beam hanger, and this hanger is suspended off of the reach hounds on the rear axle, which the reach goes through, on this case, below the reach hounds. And so since these are a friction brake, as this wheel rotates forward as the wagon is going forward, the pressure with that friction up against the wheel is downward on this brake beam. And when it's downward on the brake beam, it is downward on the reach. Well, that reach is generally just a 2x4, and it's usually a full 2x4 inches. And that's a lot of pressure on a 2x4. So on the end of these brake beam hangers, there's usually some style of ironwork that transfers the downward pressure off of this brake beam up to the box. So while these box sides are only 3/4 of an inch thick, they'll range anywhere from 14 to 18 inches deep. And that board on edge has a lot of strength to it. So when this sheep wagon came in the pile of remnants that it was, remember it was on two 30s vintage wire spoke pneumatic wheels. That was not original to this wagon, and we've gone through this in the past where there were different signatures that shows that this was on a wood wheel gear. Well, these irons that transfer the pressure from the brake beam to the side of the box were also on this box. Now, we looked at this about a week ago where this was the placement of that side box on the left side, and this is where the imprint of the iron where the brace came out to the step. Well, there's also an imprint here that shows a placement of an ironwork. And this is that ironwork that came off the left side. It was bolted ahead of this brace and in between the brace and this box. Well, this iron goes down to that ironwork that's on the brake beam hanger. So while this sheep wagon body was on this rubber tired one axle two wheel undercarriage, strange as it was, these irons show that it was off of a four-wheel wagon. Well, this undercarriage didn't go to this body, so the placement of these irons that go down to the brake beam hanger are going to have to be a little bit different, but they have to serve the function of taking the pressure off of the brake, transferring it onto the body. I'm going to get rid of this tag. So this is where the hanger of the brake beam is. So these two straps need to be directly on top of the brake beam hangers. I'm going to put it right about like so. So I set these holes at about 2 inches apart. There's a number of different ways these can be put together. I'm actually going to put a flat strap in here and punch a couple holes in them. So I'll start out with a piece that's maybe 3.5 to 4 inches. Looks like maybe 3.5 inches would be just about sufficient. Well, I've got these coated with my vinegar solution and they've got a good rust starting on them. This is the second coat and they're still a little wet, but I think I'm going to put them together and they can just finish their rusting right in place. Well, there's one more iron that I would like to install, and it has to do with the latch of this lower door. Well, half of this latch was still on the right side of the body on the side panel. So I've got it half attached. I still need one more bolt. So I was kind of up in the air of what to do with this other half that was missing. Well, it came to be when I was getting out this old stove, trying to figure out, do we fix it, do we patch it, all that stuff. On the top of that old stove was the remnant of the lower door, which I had not been able to find. Well, I had set this stove aside several years ago before I started this whole project, and I had set that lower door on top of that stove. So that other half of that latch was on that stove. So it should fit over this other half about like so, and some type of a pin maybe, I don't know what that was, but it should set in here about like so. Well, you notice there's a gap in behind here. How come? Well, if you remember when I was dealing with this door frame, remember how it was shimmed out? It was crooked on the top, coming out to a bevel. So instead of this door setting flush here, it had another trim, another 3/4 of an inch out. Well, when I built this frame, I took that shim out. And so now my door sits flush. Well, evidently this latch was made for a crooked door. So I'm going to have to shim that out because I'm not going to make a crooked door. So I have another piece of old lumber here. I'm going to fit that right in behind this latch. But because of this trim for these door panels, I'm going to have to notch that out 3/8 of an inch. So this will set down tight and there'll be 2 bolts. Evidently this was some salvage iron because there's an odd bolt here, but we'll have 1 bolt through the panel and 1 bolt through the frame, and that'll close that door. Well, I think that is the last of the old original irons that needed to go back on. Unless something shows up that I'm not thinking of. I think that's it. I do have the brake assembly, the ratchet inside and all that I still have to make. I'll probably do that next week. But I think that's all the original iron. Anyway, appreciate you coming along. Thanks for watching.